1, 2, hello.
Assistenti, Presidente
E participante na takeover?
Yeah. Bueno. Ok. Ele é que vai começar a moderar.
Welcome to the Partido Democrat live webinar sessions. My name is Gatim Cavara, and I'm going to be your moderator during these two webinars that are taking place today and on Friday. So for those of you who have joined us, we want to thank you for having taking the time to come and participate in these webinars. We're very happy to have you here with us. Before we move on, let me a quick description of our webinar today. Today, we're going to be talking about the economic recovery of Madeira, despite everything that's happened with COVID-19 pandemic. And we have a very special guest who's going to be telling us all about it. He's the president of Madeira, and he's going to be sharing with us his insights into how they've been able to recover economically from the pandemic. But before we move on to our very special speaker today, I want to introduce the leader of Partido Democrat, Ms. Elsa Roosendaal, who is going to be addressing you and welcoming you to this webinar sessions. So please help me welcome Ms. Elsa Roosendaal.
On behalf of the Democratic Party, Curaçao Partido Democrat, and the people of Curaçao, we would like to welcome you to this crucial webinar about the economic recovery post-COVID-19. Living worldwide in difficult moments of uncertainty, it is very urgent to understand the strategies of how entrepreneurs do survive in these times of the pandemic. Today, we are pleased with the guest speaker, Mr. Miguel Filipe Machado de Albuquerque, the Honorable President of the Regional Government of Madeira, an island almost twice the size of Curaçao, presenting how this island is dealing with the economic recovery past COVID-19. With this statement, we of the Democratic Party, Partido Democrat, declare this webinar officially open. Welcome.
So,
Thank you, Ms. Elsa Rosendahl. Thank you for being here today and to be sharing a few words. We want to wish you and Partido Democrat all the best of luck on the 19th of March and Curaçao's elections. We're sure you're going to be very successful. So today's topic is uncovering how Madeira is in the process of recovering in their economy after COVID. This is something that is of interest of all of us here in Curaçao. Like many other countries in the world, we've all felt the tremble in our economy because of COVID. And we have a case today of Madeira, which is a very special case. And who better to tell us about it than the president of the regional area of Madeira. But before I go on, I want to give some ground rules on how this is going to work. So for those of you who are listening to me, there's going to be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So after the president presents and presents his presentation, we're going to have a Q&A. So there's a Q&A button where you can go and you can start putting in your questions. Your questions will be private, and we will make sure that the president gets your question and then answers those questions to you. If you're having technical problems with the webinar for any reason, there's a chat box that you can also write to us and let us know if you're having any technical difficulties, and a team will contact you so that we can fix this issue right away. If you are in Curaçao, you can also call the number 673-0646 in case that you need technical assistance. That is 673-0646. So allow me to introduce our very special guest today. He's got a law degree and has been with his practice in law since 1986, specializing in criminal and family law. He is the president of the regional government of Madeira since April 2015. He's also the president of the regional Social Democratic Council of Madeira since January 10th, 2015. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable President of the Regional Government of Madeira, Mr. Miguel Filipe Machado de Albuquerque. Welcome, Mr. President. Welcome to this webinar. We are very glad to have you here today. So I'm going to pass now the opportunity to you. We're going to switch to you so that you can direct yourself to the participants. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hello, it's a big pleasure to be with you today. And I think that it's very important for us to reflect the trends that we have today with this crisis, that it was first a health crisis that brings a social and economic crisis, a very heavy crisis that the world is facing. The heartlands and the small territories like our territories have a double trend because we are small territories that are open to the world. And economies like the economy of Madeira, economy of Curaçao, that depending a lot from the tourism, have a very heavy crisis in these sectors. But we start to deal here with COVID in March of the last year, and our priorities is to save the lives and the health of our people. That's the main priority, because if you don't have the population protect in a health way, you don't have any politics that allow you to promote or to protect the economy or to protect the social subject. So the first measures that we take is to improve the first regulation to the airports, to the entrance of the islands, that regulation impose to that ones that want to come to Madeira, they have to make here the tests. The government finance the tests in the airport to control the entrance of the COVID and to control the proliferation of the sick here in the island. And that allow us, in a small territory like our territory, with a lot of population, to maintain the control of the situation of the COVID. The people start to come to Madeira because we didn't close the island. We closed the island only from end of March to the beginning of June. And in June, it will open again the island. And they start to come the people, special tourism and people from our communities, and the control, the system control, that is the first one that we allow to create here in European Union. It's here in Madeira. Allow us to control the situation of the sickness here in Madeira. At the same time, our technology companies create here in Madeira a system that allows the people that travel from Madeira, that the health system, the health regional system, to control all the situation of the people when it circulates here in the island. The contacts that they have, it's a small algorithm that they have in the smartphone. They allow us to use it, and then that allow us to control the contacts. And when we have a situation that we have an infection, we can we're allowed to reconstruct all the contacts that people have. And that system, the system of control of the airport, the tests that we made, and this platform of algorithms, digital platform, allows Madeira to maintain till today the control of the situation in pandemic. Here we are not closed. Since then, that we never close our economy, all the social and economic routines here in Madeira is running. And the only thing that we noticed is that our tourists, especially from Germany and from England, they are not allowed to come because the countries are still closed. So that guarantees us that some sectors of our economy, especially that ones that depends of the tourism, hotels, companies of rental cars, companies that for entertainment, the tourism, the small restaurants, that is have a crisis. The other sectors don't have a crisis, because one of the things that we did last year is to diversify our economy. Today, we not depend only from the tourism. We have the digital companies that works, technology companies that are working for all over the world. They made nearly 100 million a year. We have the International Business Center in Madeira that works all over the world. We have the shipping. We have modern areas that still work in the industry, in the real estate, that is working normal. What we have to look, when we look around, what is the politics subjects that for us is very important is now the situation of, in first place, the vaccines. We start to receive in proportional terms from mainland the number of vaccines for our population. The schools are working here till the 6th class. The other ones are with the people have the digital school, but the presential school is working here in Madeira till since the children, the young children, till the 6th year. And the only measure that we have today is that we close the things at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock we close. Everybody is going home. And that allows us to maintain control situation in pandemic terms, and allow us that the people have a normal life. They don't have the psychological crisis to be closed like in mainland, months and months, and in almost of the European countries. One of the priorities that we have is to control the entrance with the tests, and the other priority is to invest in an area. We built a new service in the hospital that is completely isolated from the hospital, the normal hospital, to receive all the people that have COVID with all the pathologies. We have rooms for operations, for surgeries, for all the sickness in an area that we invest nearly 30 million. Because one of the main points is that in a situation like us, like how that we live, we have to maintain the capacity of the health service to give the necessary answer to the people that take COVID. And that answer have to be autonomous from the normal service, health service of the hospital. So that is an investment very strong that we did. Now we support our companies, since the companies that is connect with the tourism, that companies have a big crisis now, in 200 millions. Supporting the jobs, supporting the costs of the companies, because we know that if the companies collapse, it's much more difficult to early beginning than to sustain that companies with the help from the government, that when the tourism return in the summer, everybody is ready to start to work. Today, what is the main point? The main point, I think, is that small territories like we have to diversify the economies. We're not able anymore to be dependent of a sector very strong, like 26, 25, 23% of the tourism, because it's very dangerous. We need to first diversify our economy, because that is a defense of this kind of crisis. Because we have the crisis now from the COVID, but in the past we have the crisis of the Gulf War, we have the crisis of the climate. So the defense of a territory that is open to the world like ours, that depends on the world market, is to diversify our economy. And today we have a big opportunity. Territories like our territories have the opportunity till working with the digital and the new technology economy to avoid one of the main problems. That is because we are very strong and we are far away from the big centers. One of the ways that we have to avoid that structural negative points of our situation is to work with the digital, because in the digital you are working here, but it's the same if you are working at the center of Germany. That's the same. So what we learn with this crisis is, first place, we have to be prepared for a health crisis. And to be prepared for the health crisis, the state, the government, need to have a good plan that maintains the normal service of the health working, and to have the capacity that in a very critical way to give the answers to the crisis. The second one is that the government needs to have the control of the territory, especially in insular islands. And the main point is the ports, the airports, and the digital connections. That should be always belongs to the government, or the government need to have the possibility to intervene in this 3 ports, airports, and digital cable, because this is the entrance of the territory. The third point is the economy. It's very dangerous that our economy is not diversified. We need always to diversify the economy in different sectors and not be dependent only of a sector, especially to not be dependent only from the tourism. Thank you very much. I am ready to answer to your questions if you need. Thank you. Er is het maar.
Van mij even hier.
Oké.
We learned a lot from that short presentation, but it was very straight to the point. Some of the key findings that I think I'm just going to repeat them, Mr. President, for our participants, which I think are very important. Always be prepared for a health crisis. Always be prepared for a health crisis. The second, government needs to control its territory and the ports, whether it be airports, seaports, and you mentioned also, very interestingly, you mentioned the digital cable, so the access of internet into the territory. And the third learnings that I think was also very important that you shared with us was always have a diversified economy, not only rely on tourism or one particular industry, but have a very diversified economy. These 3 things help recuperation, help to protect the people of the territory. So thank you for that. We do have some questions, Mr. President. So I'm just going to read some of the questions that we have here. The first question that came from one of our participants is, how does Madeira attract technology companies or digital companies to come and set up in Madeira, and do you offer any special fiscal arrangements to be able to attract these companies to Madeira? What has been your experience in this area? If you could please share that with us and our participant.
Okay, that's a good question. One of the ways is, of course, we have reduced taxes for this kind of companies, but that is not enough. We need to have an environment that is proper for this kind of investors. It's people that is not special, this kind of people from the startups, these new startups that we have, the digital nomads like we have here. They exist and they demand something more than the conditions, the fiscal conditions. That is something that is important, but in the past that is very, very important. Today is not enough. They like places where they have quality of life. They like places where they can live with the same way than the population. A peaceful place where they have quality of life. They have a good environment. They have friendly neighborhood. And they have good communications. And that, I think, is the main point. When we start this company, the main of the big companies that we have here, they start here in Madeira. Actually, they start in some of the companies. It's a small companies that starts in the small shops to sell computers. And after, it's young guys that start to develop the systems. 2 of the big companies that we have, starting the small shops, and today they have more than 300 people working, another one have more than 250, and they work all over the world because they create their own systems. With the connections with the university, we create here a MIT center where we have the people from all over the world that is connected with the university, and that is a good environment for the startups too. Because if you have young people and the young people attract other young people, they don't need anything special. They need some working centers with good connections, and the things is running in a proper way. If you have quality of life, if we have the respect from the natural environment, that is a good way to attract these new companies. With good communications, with quality of life. Other thing that is very, very important, this kind of people, they ask, the quality of life is good. Yes, the climate is good. I can swim, I can make sports, I can walk in the mountain. And other thing that they ask is the health service, they are good. If I feel sick, I have a proper treatment in the health system. If you have that, we have all the conditions to receive this kind of companies, because this kind of companies is the future. And this kind of companies is a way that the small territories like we have to avoid our natural problems of to be small and to be far away from the big centers.
Answer, yes. I think you added a lot besides the fiscal, which is interesting, but yes, you've mentioned things that are really related to people. So companies are made of people. So at the end of the day, it is the quality of life you mentioned, the health system, the friendliness of the country. All these things are very important to attract both the companies, international companies, and digital nomads, which now is a very important phenomena around the world. And of course, an environment that, and I heard you say, that fosters local entrepreneurs to also develop their digital companies and to be able to grow. So we have a few more questions. Let me see, yes. One more question we have here is, can you please share with us a little bit more about Madeira's economic recovery crisis plan? So do you have a specific crisis plan did you have something like this before COVID? Did it have to change because of COVID? What can you tell us about that?
Yes, I'm going to complete my answer with other thing that I think is important. For example, for our territories, if someone that takes decisions in this area of the new technologies and the new companies of technology is something very important. For example, normal, when you take decisions in the political terms, connecting with these new companies, technology companies, we make two mistakes. The first one, it's, for example, if you have a normal formation in our university, that is, for example, new technologies, what's happened when they finish the course in university, they are not able to work in these new digital companies, because what they are learning, they are not already good for the work that they're going to do, because the technology is evolving so quickly that is better in the last year of the course to finance the companies to give the formations to the people that leave the universities. Because one of the big problems of these companies that they need people to work. And the people that leave the university, they is not familiar with the technologies that they develop. So the best way is that you have a fund in the government that pay the formation of that students or that people that is finished the course in the companies that they go employ them, or to have a manner that support that people in the first year or the second year that they're going to work in that companies. That is very important. The second thing is that when we speak about the digital companies, we have the idea that we're speaking about the same thing. The companies are completely different. I'm going to give you an example. If you're speaking about a company like we have here, Iwaba, it's a company that is two guys that create a chirurgic necrochirurgic instrument for medicine to surgeries. This is a company. Other company that we have here. It's a company that creates an algorithm that allows in the big buildings to save 35% of the energy that they normally we waste that energy. This is two completely different companies. So the idea that we're going to support, that we're going to pay for that companies to go to a convention or to put the companies at the same areas, the areas are completely different. They are technology companies, but they work in these completely different systems with different subjects, with different realities. And when you take the decisions, especially in the political, in the government, the decisions, we have to take care of this difference between the companies. The measures that we're going to take, we have two main measures. We have a finance. We made an a finance operation for half 500 millions that we're going to finance the health service, especially all the investments that we made in tests, in the control of the epidemiology, the COVID, in the new areas of COVID. That is a lot of money. It's more than 150 millions that we spend there. On the other hand, we have the social problem. The social problem, we invest a lot of money too now. I think that to support the families that we spend more than 70 millions, and the companies, to support the companies, we have the supporting from the social security, the layoffs, and in the complementary of these supports, we're going to support. We are supporting the companies in nearly 200 millions. That means what? That we have to sustain now this very difficult months, because we start in March, this crisis. This crisis is not a crisis of 3 months, 4 months. This crisis is going to be 1 year and a half. And during this year and a half, we have to support the companies, the jobs, and the economy, especially the companies that are connecting with the sector that is more suffering with this crisis, the connection with the tourism. And that is the plan.
Super. Thank you, Mr. President. That's a very reasonable and logical plan. I mean, if you're focusing on the health, which is first thing, you must ensure the health services. Second, you're making sure that the social planning and making sure that the people who've lost jobs, companies that are lost money, so that they are being taken care of until you're able to come out of the crisis. Those I understand are your two main pillars. Thank you for sharing that with us. We have a few more questions. Let me see. We're going to see here. So we have a question about in your tourism sector. Somebody wants to know, how have you experienced the drop in tourists, and what are you doing right now to be able to curb that number of tourists, so to attract more tourists to the island?
Okay. We have two sectors in the tourism. One of the sectors, I have to say, that is the worst and is the more difficult, is the cruise ship. We receive here in Madeira about 600,000 people here in the port of Funchal here, and that represents in direct receipts for Funchal, for the capital, more than between 50 and 60 million a year. That is a sector that is one of the first to close, and I think it's going to be one of the last to open. And that is something that is costing a lot for us, because it's a receipt that is coming, that tourists made the tours, and on this is a sector that we are suffering a lot. The main markets for Madeira, we have about 8 million, 7.5 million, 8 million slips a year in Madeira. One of the main markets is England and it's Germany. As you know, during the summer, when the economies in Europe open, we receive in June, July, August, September, October, we receive tourists. We receive about, say, the travel is about 200,000. It's not too much, but we maintain some hotels and some activities in the tourism working. After the third wave in December, everything closed. And now England and Germany are still closed. We have tourism from other countries, that we have people that come from England and from Germany that stay here with us since many months, because here they can go to the beach, they can go to shop, they can make really life, and there's a lot of people that working here and they stay here, especially in some hotels, long stays for months. And now what we think is that one of what we are promoting is that Madeira is a safe, COVID-safe destination. It's one of the places in Europe that is still, everything is working. And I think that we're going to recover the tourism special during this summer. I think that the people they want to travel. The people are fed up to be at home, to be close at home. So when the countries, especially a country like England that now have nearly 20% of the people with the vaccine, I think that they're going to start to open, and I think they're going to open in June, in the beginning of June. The same, I think that's going to happen with Germany and most of the markets. One of the dangerous things that is happening now, it's that this COVID, we don't know too much about the virus. And if you notice now, what's happened last 2 or 3 days, it's when they start to have some relaxations in the measures, for example, in Italy or in France, the number of the cases start immediately to grow. So it's something that I think that the last 2 months is going to be very important, especially for the European markets, the way that they're going to act and the way that they're going to reopen the countries is going to be very important for the tourism to have a new beginning in this summer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's a question that is, I think, both related to economy and to tourism, and it's about the digital nomads that we touched based on a little earlier, and how important this phenomenon about the digital nomads is. The question that we have is, what requirements or what has Madeira done to be able to attract these digital nomads? And is there special permits that or visas that are given to them? Are there special requirements for the digital nomads to be able to stay for a longer period of time? No. Can you share with us a little bit more about how, what is the, in terms of immigration, in terms of customs, in terms of them paying taxes? How are you approaching and attracting and keeping the digital nomads?
We have here an organization that is a department of the government, is connect only with the startups. And the guys that is in front of the startups have these connections. And I received some of the influencers, because this works in a way that everybody's connected. And if you have the right contact with the right guys, and the right guys like the place, they make the work. And what's happened, it's in the beginning, we speak about, 6 months or 7 months ago, I have a meeting with young people that is very influential of this digital. And in the village of the west part of Madeira, that is very nice village with a fantastic weather. They have the surf, they have the mountains where they have the possibility of to climb the mountains and then to have the contact of the nurses. The people love that places. And the houses that they rent, they are not very expensive. So and the connection is very good. So also you have a fantastic connection. Now that is something that we invest. We invest in the connection in the new cable. That the new cable is a cable that have a very, very big capacity to transmit the information, and it's 50 million that we have that we invest in the cable. So that people is coming. They have special conditions that normal they can come with the gold visa. It's a card of special resident that we have. And sometimes when they need to renovate, they come 3 months, and after they renovate, the license to stay here. And we have this department of the government that deal with the foreign and the border service to not complicate the life of these people. So what we need to have, it's more than an institutional approach, it's a personal approach. I think the personal approach is very important. Because if you can make, for example, a pamphlet to say, this is a fantastic place, you put something into this is a fantastic place for the digital nomads to come. That don't work like that. You have to have someone that bring to you, and you have the personal contact with the guys that have a lot of influence in the other ones. And if they like the place, if they like you, if they think that this is a very nice place to stay months, then the work is done. It's not like in the old times that the company is coming because the tax is low or you're going to pay more 3 years. That is not the main point. The main point is they feel comfortable, they have quality of life, they have a friendly and nice environment around them. And that's the way that what they want.
And I have a question for you, Mr. President. You mentioned a lot since the beginning. You mentioned the quality of life. You've highlighted these words a lot as from dealing with the sickness of COVID, from attracting these digital nomads, for the population, for the residents of Madeira, the people of Madeira. I would love to hear from you. What is in your term? How do you define quality of life? What do you think is that quality of life that's universal? What, in your point of view, how do you see this?
I think quality of life, it's the main point of the civilization, because what we achieve today is something extraordinary on the story of the humanity. Simple things. If you have good health service, if you have good water, if you have good food, if you have a good house, if you have the possibility to have a normal job, if you have security, physical security in your life, if you are allowed to go to swim to the sea in the morning and to walk in a nice park or in the forest at afternoon, if you have the possibility to have a good family life, if you don't spend hours on hours in the public transportation, if you have a good connection, digital connection, if you have access to the culture, to the education, that's what I call quality of life. Sometimes this quality of life don't depend on the millions that you have, but the place where you live, and if you want and you know how to live.
President. I wanted to know also about there's a question here from one of our participants who would like to know, you've mentioned before that you see a recuperation in your tourism industry happening possibly this summer with some of the developments that are happening in England. And for more longer term, how do you see, for example, the vaccinations right now that I imagine, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how the process of vaccination is happening in Madeira. What is your point of view on how it's happening in Europe, and how will that facilitate travel and tourism, and how does Madeira look forward to take advantage of this new wave of vaccinations?
The first thing that I have to say to you, I think one of the good decisions, you know that in all times, European Union, the Commission, don't have any powers in the health. The health is from the states. But with the COVID, I think the European Union took a very, very important decision, especially the President should take these decisions. The European Union is going to buy the vaccines for the 400 million of people from the member states of the Union, and we're going to distribute the vaccines to all the states of the Union European in the same way, in the proportional way. I think this is a good decision because if that is not going to happen like that, what is going to happen is the rich countries is going to get the vaccine in the European Union, the more rich, more powerful, in the first place. And that is going to create political and social fragilities in the European Union. So this is a very good decision. Now, England is more quickly in the vaccination. They are working with the vaccine AstraZeneca, and they have about now 20% of the people with the vaccine already. I think so. Europe is now buying the vaccines, and all the people from Europe is getting the vaccines in the proportional way, and the same with Madeira, because Madeira is part of the European Union. It's an ultra-peripheral region from the European Union. One of the main points that's happened with the vaccines is that you're going to have, again, a break between the countries that are going to have the vaccine fast and quickly, and the countries in the world, especially that ones from the south, the poor countries like Mozambique, they're not going to have the vaccine. And one of the ethic questions that we're going to have, especially when we speak about the tourism, is to say like that. For example, a country, not Madeira, because, for example, Madeira, in September, with this rhythm, 70% of the population have the vaccine, so we can receive the tourists, even that ones that have the vaccine, because the guy that receives the vaccine can be asymptomatic, but to take the virus. So imagine if the population of Madeira have the immunization, global immunization in September, because the young people is not going to take the vaccine, that means that we can receive all the people that is coming with the vaccine to Madeira. It's no problem. But imagine a country, for example, from Africa, that the people that don't have the vaccine, they didn't take yet the vaccine, and they're going to receive, for example, the tourists that have the vaccine, but can have the virus. And that virus can spread in the people of the hotels, or the people of rent-a-cars, or in the resorts, because that people that work, they don't have the vaccine. So this is some questions that we start to speak already. But I don't think that countries, in European countries, are going to be a problem, because if you have the vaccine and the countries have the same proportion at the same time, that means that when it starts the circulation, everybody is protected. But in the ethic terms, in the political the political point of view, what you're going to have, it's again a gap, a big gap between the rich and the poor. That one's from the north and that one's from the south.
That's a very interesting point about that difference between the rich and the poor, and it's something that definitely countries need to look at. That's a very interesting point of view, because when we think about the vaccine, I think it's natural to think, oh, everyone in the population will get the vaccine and the COVID will finish somehow. But I think what you're bringing forward, to keep an eye out on that difference, that economic gap, is very, very important, because that will create other types of friction in the society. I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned about having control of the territory. And now that the vaccines are coming out, there are, we've seen some information about possibly having some kind of if you've been vaccinated, something like a passport or an app that lets, when you cross borders, that you know that you've been vaccinated. This also, I understand, falls under protection of the territory or protection of borders through the entrance points that you mentioned, airports, seaport. Do you see Madeira going into some kind of control like this, where there will be some kind of control that people who are coming in and maybe separating the ones that have been vaccinated from those that have not been vaccinated? Do you see something like that happening, not only in Madeira, but maybe in Europe in general?
That is going to happen. That is going to happen in Europe. Don't have any doubt about. And one of the first regions to open the green corridor is Madeira. What we say is like that. We have a system here that we have teams in the airport that if you don't have the vaccine, you take the vaccine. Madeira pay the vaccine when you arrive here and pay the quarantine. And this is a system that we organize to receive people and to continue to be open to the world with security. But we are the first ones to say, if you have the vaccine, we have a green corridor. But we do that because we have the vaccination now in progress very quickly to our population. Because as I said to you, one of the subjects that we discuss now and in the study of COVID is that you can take the vaccine and you can be asymptomatic, but you can take the virus and to pass the virus to that guy that does not have the vaccine. And that is something that I spoke in the other answer. That's something that's going to create frictions between the rich countries and the poor countries, especially the poor countries that receive the tourism. Here in Madeira, what we're doing is if a guy have the certificate of the vaccines, they have a green line in the airport and they can pass.
Do you think this will be something from a European regional level where they'll have this kind of vaccine, or is just from your doctor you have it? Is there a way of controlling how we're going to come to a border and present that we've been vaccinated?
In the beginning, when we proposed in the AAC, we are the first regions to propose in AAC, and we proposed to our government in Lisbon that in the beginning of the pandemic, we proposed to control the airports with the tests of temperature and the tests of vaccine, because I thought, like I continue to think, that it's much cheaper for the countries to spend the money in the tests than the cost of to have infections inside the countries. So the control of the borders for a sanitary region is a good control. It's not a bad control, because a guy that have the virus, and if you have 3 other guys that have that are old and they can die with the virus, that is a very, very difficult and very situation that you should consider, that the health of the people and the life of the people is a valor, a supreme valor. So what we suggest is that when the things happen like continues to happen, is that Europe, the people is going to travel in Europe. They have 2 ways. if you control the borders, facile, you control the borders. And you're going to control the borders, you have two ways of dealing with the problem. Or you have the vaccine, and you can travel and to circulate in security for you and for other people. If you don't have the vaccine, you have to make the test. I think that is the solution. What's happened when we proposed this in the initial crisis, sanitary crisis, that most of the big companies, the big travel companies, thought this is not right because it's have a lot of costs. Imagine the costs for that companies that to stop the tourism all these months. Because some of the companies, this is impossible, the people don't going to pay the test, this is going to be a cost for the travel, but that is what we think. The green corridor is going to exist.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think there's one more question from our participants. I want to direct myself to our participants for a second. We just have probably 3 more minutes. Yes, 3 more minutes. So if you have any questions that you've been wanting to ask, please put them in the questions tab so that we can make sure the President gets them. We only have about 3 more minutes left before we wrap up our session today. So one of the questions, Mr. President, is from our participant, and he asks, does Madeira get financial assistance from the European Union in terms of this whole COVID pandemic? How, of course, we can imagine, there's a lot of pressure on the economy, a lot of pressure on a lot of companies, a lot of pressure towards politicians who are trying to keep countries alive and moving forward under very harsh conditions. Is there help coming from the European Union or from other international organizations that you can maybe give us some tips on how you're dealing with it?
Okay. As you know, all the countries, they're going to have the help from the European Union. Portugal is going to receive in this first step 15 billions, and Madeira is going to receive 5% of this money. It's about 780 millions. The main point is that since 1 year that we are waiting for this money, the bureaucracy in the European Union, it's very strong. But sorry, but I think that this is a very good step. That in a crisis like that, European Union get the decision in a proper way, not like in the crisis of 2007. Now they know if the European Union don't take this decision to support the countries, it's the end of the European Union. So the problem is that since more than 1 year, it's going to be more than 1 year that you are waiting for this money. And all these supports that I spoke with you is made with the budget of the region. And a budget, when you have the GDP falling down, when we have the falling down of the taxes, we made an operation, a financial operation to get some credit, like I said to you, of 500 millions to support the companies. And now the first money we think that is going to come from the European Union in June, July. As you know, all this money have to be approved for the 27 countries, for the parliaments and governments and some countries have parliament and senate from the 27 countries of the European Union. So I think that now the things is running good, but it's too long. And now we are struggling. Thank you. Okay. 3 minutes time. Agora agradecer.
Well, Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our webinar today. We want to thank our very special guest, the President of Madeira, Mr. Miguel Albuquerque. He's been extremely generous with his time and with sharing his insights and his experiences dealing with COVID in his country. And those tips, for sure, are important tips for us to see how we deal with the situation of recovering our economy here in Curacao. So we want to thank all of the participants once more on behalf of Partido Democrat. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you who bought tickets for Friday, I look forward to seeing you again on Friday, where we're going to have also a very, very interesting session. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you once again for joining us. Ciao. Until next time.
Ciao. Thank you. Foi bom.
Oh,
Hã?
boa hora.
Eu ri, foi boa.